Once you're hiring remotely, like the world is your oyster, right? Like why stop at remote in the US when you can hire remote in Latin America? Previously, our like tagline was like, we take care of your time consuming and repetitive tasks. But now AI takes care of your time consuming and repetitive tasks, right? So like what we've focused on is filling vacancies where there's higher level tasks, so more complex tasks required that still need human involvement.
1, 2, 3, 4.
You're listening to Owner RX with Alan Pentz, the podcast for business owners who want to scale without sacrifice. Each episode delivers battle-tested strategies from the Owner RX Playbook Library, showing you exactly how to build systems that run without you. Here's your host, Alan Pentz.
All right, welcome back to the pod. We have a very special guest today, Dan Baker, founder and CEO of LatAm. Welcome to the pod, Dan. It's great having you here.
Thank you very much for having me, Alan. It's a pleasure to be here and talking with you.
Yeah, so you are talking to us from London, but you normally reside in Venezuela, Caracas,
That's correct.
which,
Yeah.
and so tell us a little bit about the services you guys provide.
Yeah, with pleasure. So Valatam provide virtual assistants and bilingual remote teams, mostly from Venezuela, but over the last few years we've spread out and we now hire from 7 different countries in Latin America. And essentially we're putting bilingual college grads through a really intensive vetting process and then a 1-month training. And we're connecting the graduates of that training with US and Canadian businesses to fill their remote support vacancies.
So, and you guys cover all sorts of services, or what, like, or do they do customer? It's all finance. What other kinds of
Yeah.
roles?
So our bread and butter is administrative and executive assistants and customer service roles. But pretty much any support vacancy with the word assistant on the end is something we do. So we do marketing assistants, finance assistants, recruitment assistants, project management assistants. The only thing we don't do is sales.
Okay.
But pretty much everything else we do, yeah.
So interesting. Is sales more difficult to hire for, or
Yeah, you can say that. So I cut my teeth in the sales industry in Mexico. I moved from the UK to Mexico City after university, and I was working for an investment brokerage there. And the way I got into outsourcing was actually outsourcing my own job without perhaps telling my boss what I was doing. So essentially, I read The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss.
yeah.
And also one of my best childhood friends, Tom Hunt, who I believe you know,
Mhm.
one time he had a small outsourcing/consulting business. So I'd seen these things. I knew these things were possible. And I was getting a bit tired of doing the business development for my employer. And I started hiring virtual assistants in the Philippines to do cold calling and lead generation. And it works, but it's a hell of a job to find people that are good at sales and that will, if they're good at sales, often they're job hopping. And the
Mm.
vast majority of people are not good at closing deals. They can be, but it takes a lot of training. And in order to scale Valatam to be the size it is today, I wasn't going to be able to be, personally mentoring every virtual assistant that we placed with our clients.
Wow. So I find this really fascinating that the role that like basically, but you would say assistant, right? So you wouldn't hire someone to like run your entire marketing program, or or how would you look at that role?
No, so we wouldn't do like CMO positions.
Right.
We have like different levels of seniority. So we have like regular assistants who are typically in their younger 20s, a couple of years out of uni, a little bit of work experience under their belt. And they're filling general assistant positions in different areas. Then we have like more senior assistants and they've had a few more years of experience and they're not going to come in and manage a department, but they're definitely going to need less onboarding and less training in the tasks. And then we do have specialists. So we provide like accountants and digital marketing specialists. They're more senior still, but still, again, they're not going to be a department manager.
And what do you think the role, what do you think the issue, is it just what you've chosen to focus on that causes, or could, I mean, I've heard people going out and getting CEOs in countries now. Is it
Yeah.
just you've chosen to focus on this other part of the market, or is there like a real barrier there?
Um, well, like the higher level the talent, the harder it is to find. That's definitely the case. Um, but I think it's more that we've decided to focus on these kinds of support positions, which are more repeatable and scalable. Um, Particularly because our model is to do a 1 month training with our assistants before we put them with our clients. That serves as much to more thoroughly vet the candidates than to provide the training and the roles, because we're industry agnostic and role agnostic. So we're helping clients with really different things. And the training, we try and cover as much as we can across different areas where the assistants might be helping the clients. But to do like a 1 month CMO training or CFO training it would be pretty tricky. Um,
Yeah, no, it
in
makes
terms of,
sense.
I was just going to say, in terms of like Valatam, our internal roles, um, all of our managers have been developed from virtual assistant positions. So our head of recruitment, our head of finance, our COO, who essentially runs the business, started out as a part-time HR assistant with me 7 years ago, and she now runs everything. So the,
Uh,
the yeah, the possibilities are endless, but we've just decided to focus on those more junior support roles.
yeah, no, it makes sense. I mean, I guess the one thing I would pull out is this. I have a theme that sales is like the one thing that the founder can't stop doing until they hit, I think upwards of like 10 million US revenue, because at that point, then you can afford to hire someone who actually has done the role before, done it well, and can structure a process, run a department. But until that point, basically, it's almost impossible to find sales talent. I mean, you can find a sales assistant maybe who could help, like a BDR kind of role. But I think that's really interesting, confirmation of that. And then I guess the other thing I'd be really interested in is what is it like scaling? Because we often talk about this in small business. There's no talent left in the US. Prices are going up. So people are going to um, outsource or global talent.
Yeah.
Um, how do you how what's unique or different, and have you learned about actually managing a company? I assume that this is across multiple countries. And then actually growing people into real leadership roles that way. Be curious to hear how that's gone.
Yeah. So I was working remotely for my first employer out of uni back in 2011. Um, so I was definitely early on the remote working bandwagon. And since I started Valatam, um, it was remote. We didn't have an office initially. Um, so everything was done online. And then we'd meet occasionally in cafes and things back in the early days when we were very small. We wouldn't fit in the cafe anymore. Um, but yeah, we've been 100% remote, and particularly with the kind of jobs we've been doing for our customers, you know, I always used to joke like we can do anything apart from make the coffees and open the mail, because pretty much anything can be done on a laptop these days, right? So in terms of working remote, that's worked really well for us. We were blessed during COVID. I mean, I always say I wish COVID never happened. It was a terrible time, but talking about the openness of people to having remote teams, it was like a eye opener that many people hadn't had. Um, so that's definitely made our customer base more open to hiring remotely. And then once you're hiring remotely, like the world is your oyster, right? Like why stop at remote in the US when you can hire remote in Latin America? Um, yeah, and open the doors to all that additional talent and be saving money in the process.
And is it a different kind of challenge to scale like real department leaders who might live in, Argentina or whatever, how's that gone?
Yeah. So, like I said earlier, all of our department heads started out as virtual assistants. Um, the way I did it early on was probably like most entrepreneurs, I did everything myself. And then when I got tired of doing something myself or I wanted to do something else, I'd then train one of the team to do those tasks. Um, that was really easy to manage remotely. And particularly because the people had started out as a virtual assistant supporting me with the tasks in that area, they'd already have the basis to do the tasks and manage the tasks. And then I just spend a lot of time with them and have them watch me carry out those processes, document those processes, and then slowly but surely take over the process themselves. Um, and I actually did do that with sales. That's the main example I can think of. Um, I used to have VAs sit in on my sales calls, and then I'd write the proposal, I'd send the proposal, but I'd have them watch me do all of the post call follow up, and then I'd start having them take care of the post call follow up. So they'd draft the proposal, they'd make the follow ups, and they just sit in with me on the sales calls. And then again, with time, I started getting them to take over parts of the sales call with me sitting and observing and jumping in when I needed to. And then over quite a long time period, to be fair, like about a year, it would get to the point where I'd feel comfortable that they would take the sales calls themselves, and they already knew how to take care of all the post call follow up.
Did you think that year time, was there a part of that was because they were international talent, or would that have been the same for somebody in the US or the UK that you had hired?
I think it could have equally been done with someone in the US. What it helped in the early days when I was much smaller, the the cost of hiring people was definitely a bigger factor. Like I wouldn't have been able to do what I did in Venezuela if I was hiring people in the US and paying US salaries. Um,
Right.
I
But
wouldn't
was
have.
there something unique culturally that you had to spend more time with someone from Venezuela or Argentina than someone from the US? Or is it just that's how hard it is to train salespeople no matter where they're from?
I think it was probably me not wanting to let go, to be honest.
Okay.
Probably could have let go a
Yeah.
lot earlier. Um, but yeah, I just wanted to make sure they were 100% ready for the role. Um,
Hmm.
these people weren't experienced salespeople; they were virtual assistants, so they did need a lot of training because they hadn't worked in sales before. I'm thinking of the people who are still with me now doing it, like Natty. Um, she's still one of our AEs, and we'd hired her from. She was a lawyer for the Supreme Court in Venezuela, so she was like really intelligent, great at talking, as lawyers are. Um, but she didn't have any sales experience. So I definitely had to teach her a lot of stuff.
Yeah. So I'm interested in this too because I think often, the entry path to this is, people are looking for assistant positions like you're hiring for. But they really don't conceive of global talent as a way to structure their business, right? It's like some part of their business, or it's just a few people helping around the edges. And I've been growing this Owner RX thing, focused on. I'm doing coaching, and then I'm developing the software. as an AI business advisor, and I've really been thinking about it as the primary method for growing the company over time. And like I don't see myself really hiring in the US at all. And so that might change, but who knows? Um, so I think that that's like a significant, I don't see a lot of people thinking about it as like, oh, I could just structure my entire company this way, right? And I think that maybe that's a reflection in the market. You don't see those services, the higher end services advertised quite as much, I think. It must be, largely because people aren't looking for it. Um,
Yeah, and I think until you see what's possible with your own eyes, often it's you're like blind to the possibilities, you know.
right.
And also on the hiring side, I remember when I first arrived in Venezuela, everyone was leaving Venezuela in search of jobs because they just didn't the like remote working thing hadn't really taken hold in Venezuela. So everyone thought, oh, in order to get that good job, I need to be in the US or I need to be in Spain. Um, until they saw what was possible in terms of connecting with international jobs remotely, they just didn't really take it into account. And I think that's the same with a lot of business owners in the US. Um, until they've seen what's possible working with remote talent, it's just not really on their radar. Um, I'm a member of EO, which I checked out your LinkedIn. I saw
Yeah.
you're also a member. I think in EO, business owners are really progressive, and definitely in the community there, I see a lot more people that are. Everyone knows what a virtual assistant is. Most people have worked with them, and quite a lot of them are like fully eyes open, and they're growing their whole business with offshore talent. Um,
Hmm.
I think it also makes a huge difference your early experiences working with VAs. So like some people get burned and they have bad experiences. The talent wasn't what it was promised to be. And then they think, oh, this isn't going to work. I need to go back to hiring in the US. Whereas other
Yeah.
people hit the jackpot and get someone like my now COO, who on her
Hmm.
first day working as a HR assistant, who was just supposed to be doing data entry and stuff, she was drawing org charts for me and showing how we needed to restructure the business. And from that day,
Right.
I was like, oh, right, I see what's possible.
That's great. That's awesome. And I think there's a little bit of the cultural stuff happening as well, right? Where you hear like reputationally, you'd say like, people hiring in the Philippines or India, they tend not to get that. They get people who are good at executing, but they're culturally, I guess, not that familiar. Like making a suggestion like that might not be something that people think would be okay, right? Whereas in a Latin American culture, a little more similar to, US or UK, where they'll kind of do stuff, right?
100%. So, like, as I said earlier, I started hiring in the Philippines. And I mean, I found a few rock stars who were amazing, but most people were just following following orders, following processes. So there wasn't very much thinking outside of the box. And the other thing I noticed is people wouldn't seem to ask questions, uh,
Right.
and that also people would get stuck and they still wouldn't come and ask for help. So then things would
Right.
just delayed. Um, and then I mean, I'd lived in Latin America, but I hadn't thought of hiring in Mexico, which is where I was living. But when I got to Venezuela, I did. And yeah, I was just really pleasantly surprised. The professional culture was much more similar to what I was used to. Um, People weren't just following the SOP blindly. They would like question things, and if they hit a barrier, they'd think of a way around it rather than just hitting their head against the wall. Um,
Right.
and yeah, people weren't afraid to ask questions. Um, so yeah, I pretty soon after starting hiring in Venezuela, I stopped hiring in the Philippines and never looked back.
Oh, that's great. So now, how are you seeing AI affecting the industry, right? So I'm sure it's something you guys are tracking. Like a lot of people think that sort of Philippine Indian outsourcing is going to be the first thing to go, right? To be automated. Um, any sense of how it's impacting the industry?
Yeah, I think it's not at the stage people are hyping it to be. Um, we've still not lost one position where the client has said, we're stopping with this VA because we're giving these tasks to AI. So it's still not happened once for us yet. Um, that being said, there's already like huge changes happening in several sectors. So like huge one is customer service. Like I think, and a lot of the huge outsourcing companies in LatAm, particularly in Colombia, that's the like niche they focused on is like first and second tier customer support. And now the first level customer support is all AI. So like they must already be facing huge cuts on their projects. Um, what we've done to be more prepared for AI is previously our like tagline was like, we take care of your time consuming and repetitive tasks. But now AI takes care of your time consuming and repetitive tasks, right? So like what we've focused on is filling vacancies where there's higher level tasks, so more complex tasks required
Mm,
that still need human involvement. And we've been placing more senior positions into those vacancies. The other thing we've done is in our 1 month training, we're incorporating a lot of AI. So rather than AI replacing our talent, we're setting it up so that it can help be like a force multiplier for our assistants, so they can get more done in less time and add more value to the client's businesses.
yeah, I think that's the way to go. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
my take is AI is not replacing positions today outside of a few roles. Because the real agentic part of it, where it can autonomously complete tasks, is still not there, right? I mean, it's going to require this model context protocol thing to work, and for an AI to be able to operate a website and all that kind of stuff. But I think that is coming in a year or so. And then you are going to see a lot of low end positions get automated, I think, largely because they can now reliably count on an autonomous system to do it. But I think what you're seeing, and I found this on RX, is it's not um you still need to manage the systems. You need to
Yeah.
set them up. You need to optimize them. You need to kill the ones that don't work more with the ones that do. And so, like, yes, you can grow, like everyone's talking about the billion person, one person startup. I'm like, that person's going to have a hell of a life because it still requires quite a bit of orchestration and monitoring. So yeah, I mean, maybe you'll have a 20-person billion-dollar startup, but I think that really the future, and I was really lucky, found somebody who was really interested in AI in Peru, and he's been great, and he's like super anxious to learn about it, and that person orchestrating the AI has been a game changer for me because I can kind of I can find stuff and he finds stuff, and like he can work with it and then figure out how to implement it. And like we're doing our first sales cold outreach email program. But it it's great. It's super interesting, but you got to see what it's saying. It's like tailoring messages every day. And like if it goes off the reservation, you got to bring it back. So I think that's where the roles are going to go, to
Yeah,
orchestrating it.
100%. Particularly with things like BDR, um,
Yeah.
that's already happening, isn't it? There's like AI BDR agents, and they're taking care of like 80-90% of the process, but it still needs someone there reviewing responses, initiating the campaigns, tweaking them, measuring them. Um, so maybe like there, where previously someone would have had five BDRs and one team lead, they're now having like the agents, but they still need one person to like man the operation.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
definitely already cutting into the volume of the positions, but not eradicating them, not like completely
Yeah.
replacing them.
Well, and I interviewed this guy, Steve Wilkinson, good Irishman, a couple of weeks ago. And his take is that, you know, exactly like we're saying AI will help with a lot of stuff, but it still, people are still lazy and they won't. So AI, you could do your own marketing with AI, but he's like, people won't. So you're still going to have somebody who's running the marketing or an out or like a contractor or something. They'll just be able to do it a lot more cheaply and a lot more efficiently because they're using AI. And
Yeah.
I think that, like for me, developing software, I was like, "Ooh, you got a point there." I think it might be that the software can't just do everything for you because you just won't do it. You still need one person there kind of pushing it. And I think that's if you can get VAs that have that experience, wow, that's an unlock for business owners because they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
They hear about AI every day, but they don't actually know how to operate that way.
There's
Um,
there's also like a lot of we do a lot of competitor analysis, and seems now every agency is saying in their marketing like AI enhanced assistants, like all our assistants can use AI. But what that might actually translate to
what does that mean?
is they have access to a ChatGPT account, but do they know how to use it properly?
Right.
Or not. And like
Yeah.
I saw early on myself using ChatGPT, and this was like really reassuring for me how bad some of the information I got from it was, where I'd catch it out in lies or incorrect information, and I realized like if I'm not giving really intelligent prompts, then I'm probably not getting really intelligent answers back. And I think so many people don't really know how to use it. So that's why I think we're
Yeah.
still a little further off than a lot of people say we are.
I
Um,
think that's right.
yeah.
Yeah. Like I think what I've seen just, and this is just like in the last month or two, so we've started using Claude Code as, so largely it's a coding, um, agent by Anthropic, right? But all it does is, all coding is like opening files and changing, you know, letters and numbers and files. That's all coding really is, right? And so what we started using it for is we keep all of our documents. Like I have a content repository for the coaching thing, and then we have all our processes and client meeting notes and client wherever we are with a client, project files, and we have Claude Code manage all of them. So then we can build agents and sub agents that operate together on top of this content repository. And we keep it all backed up on GitHub, like with the way you would with code.
This is
And
and can your team use that as like oh, I forgot. I guess in the old days it would be like an intranet. Like can your team ask it
right,
questions when they're stuck on something, and because it's got all the company's information in it, it can
yeah, it has every client, all their, well, we just implemented, so I don't have all the old client information in. But like, and we keep it separate, two different repos. And yeah, so then they just use Claude Code in their terminal and say, all right, what's this? And we have like a newsletter agent. So when I have a newsletter idea, I'm like, hey, I want to write about this. And it has like a set of agents. One like fact checks it, one gets info from the content repository, one like I can't even remember what the other one does, but they all work together. And then you just get a newsletter out and you can like edit it yourself a little bit. Um, or one breaks down every client thing. It goes back and looks at all the trends and what's happening with the client over time. One helps create their dashboard. One, so we're like running all this like. So I think something like this is going to become. Most people don't want to work out of their terminal. It's
Hmm.
scary, right? Most people don't want to use GitHub because it's awkward and weird. Um, so it'll probably have to be a little bit different UI, but I think this idea of like basically, and maybe you'll just work out of a chatbot that's linked into your current Google Drive or whatever it is. But
Yeah.
I felt liberated. I don't even really even use Drive anymore. Um, and so, but you're sitting there with all your information at the fingertips. You can just spin up an agent to do any repetitive task. And now we have this whole system where the agents have antagonist agents that improve their behavior. So it's constantly getting better. And I think like VAs with this kind of stuff, that's going to be because you still need someone to operate it, right? You got to check what the agents are doing. They'll go off and do weird shit sometimes. So um you gotta have somebody monitoring them, but I'm kind of interested in this idea of like, can you get a bunch of global talent using a system like that you can just plug into companies and like make them way more efficient and get all this stuff done like instantly.
It's
um,
coming. I think it's definitely coming. Um,
uh,
we still haven't like incorporated with one particular system. Um, that's something I think we'll be looking into. Um,
yeah,
the other
yeah,
thing
my sense. Oh god.
I was just going to say, like the other thing we see is all our clients are using different systems,
Yeah,
so it's sometimes tricky to implement something that's company wide if the customers are using different systems for different things.
yeah, so I think this is a huge battle, right? We're in like 1982, where you've got like Apple, Microsoft, IBM, like a bunch of people fighting to be the platform. And the reason we chose this, or I chose this, is because of the GitHub aspect, where like those are markdown files on GitHub. I can put those anywhere and any LLM can read them. But if you look at like what OpenAI did, I think it was just last week, they put in project memory. So now, effectively, for every client, you can have a set of files and chats that ChatGPT will remember, and then it won't leak information, and it doesn't train on from project to project, right? So that's a little bit of a game changer, and I think a lot of people are going to adopt that. But then all your data is stuck in OpenAI. Now,
Yeah,
now you
which
can
is
get it out, right? You could probably get it out, but it's going to be hard. And our GitHub system is just like Claude Code is just an agent that works on a bunch of markdown files in GitHub, and we can plug in another agent if we need to down the road. But I think one of these groups, OpenAI or Anthropic, most likely, are going to build out the suite that everybody uses. And I think this is my prediction. The early one in head is OpenAI,
hmm
but I think that Anthropic might win it
okay.
because OpenAI is so consumer focused, and they should be because 700 million billion people use it, right? Whereas Anthropic has really won with this code thing that I think they're going to lead more to like a B2B play, where Anthropic has to do or OpenAI is going to have to go to advertising and be more like the meta of the new era or something like that. But that's my
Yeah,
guess.
like for the mass markets.
Yeah, exactly. And then the really hardcore B2B cases, Anthropic will do.
Hmm.
So we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, I know it's interesting. That is one of the biggest issues is like you can go train everybody and get them using something and then it's like obsolete a month later. Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I think what you were saying earlier, like you you got a core team member who's really into AI. Um, I think that's very important, and that's something like 2 years ago in our internal hiring process, we never used to ask like how much do you use AI.
Right.
Now it's something that comes into the conversation in every hiring process because we're very conscious we need to bring in more people that are going to help us develop our use of AI. And that makes it really important for every new hiring decision. So I
Yeah.
think you've done really well there to like have a core team member who it sounds like they're doing a lot.
Yeah. It's huge. And I think having leadership, I'll toot my own horn, having me be into it helps a lot because a lot of owners are suspicious of it. And I mean, the other thing I find with it is it's not about your technical skill at all. It's about willingness to try new things, to think in a structured way, and almost in ways like I still have like using Claude Code that way was like kind of a conceptual breakthrough. Now other people have had it and are doing it, but not that many have figured out like, oh, and then you got to start thinking like, well, what can't I do with this?
Mm-hmm.
And so, there's so many things. And all of a sudden you can just think up something and you're like, oh my God, that would totally work. And that would be like amazing, right? So there's so much of that happening right now. And I just find it very hard to believe that if you hire a lower level employee, even if they have that capability, if the owner's not thinking that way, they're just not going to be able to implement it. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, um, so tell me a little bit. So you guys, the other issue people have had, right, is they have bad experiences with hiring. They got somebody who's a dud.
Unfortunately.
So you guys are, what's up?
I said, unfortunately, yes, it's one of
Yeah,
is a common in our cold outreach is a common response we get. Like people said, no, I've tried this, had bad experiences, not looking to hire offshore.
yeah. And so you guys are really trying to obviously rigorous recruiting process, but then this training. And is that's sort of your main method, or going to people who've had more experience with other companies?
Yeah, I think the selection process and the training is definitely our biggest like differentiator. Um, Also, the whole like hiring in Latin America, same time zone, same culture, because most outsourcing agencies are still hiring in the Philippines and India, Pakistan.
Yeah,
You have these huge time zone differences. I still don't think anyone should work, 5 nights a week. You're not going to get the best out of someone if they're
right.
work at midnight. Um, but yeah, like the selection process, we get about 8 to 10,000 applicants every month, and we take on approximately 20 people to the training.
Wow,
And then during the process of the training, that typically goes down to like 12 to 15. So,
wow,
I mean, on a good month, if we receive like 10,000 applicants and we're graduating 10, 12, 15 people, it's almost 1 in 1,000. Um, so I'd say that's definitely our biggest advantage. And we didn't always used to do that, right? We used to just interview people for the role, and if they did well at interview and they had the right experience, we'd put them forward for client placement. That was very hit and miss. Some
hmm,
would work out really well, some people wouldn't, and often the clients wouldn't have a very advanced selection process themselves, so they just have a quick call with a VA with an applicant, and if they did well in an interview, they'd hire them. So definitely like setting up this month where we'd train them and evaluate them in different things was a game changer because you just even like the first day someone would arrive 5 minutes late, and you
hmm,
and you'd send in the intro email to set up the first day's training, you'd say everyone needs to be in the call 5 minutes before the official start time. If you're 1 minute late, you will not be invited to take part in the training. So they're boom, 1 or 2 people immediately out on the first day. Because if you've been very clear about the timing and they
yeah,
still miss it, then they're going to be the kind of person that after a couple of weeks they're showing up late for work 2 or 3 times a week. So doing that month of like almost like they're an employee now, and you're working with them, assigning them tasks, and them going away and doing those tasks. It really allows you to see beyond what someone shows you in a job interview, and
Yeah.
I think like that's great for people hiring through Valatam, because we do that 1 month training. But like, even when people are hiring directly, I always recommend them to do like a demo day, where you have like a day in the life of the job and just pretend they're an employee, pay them for that day, but actually work with them for a bit before you make a final decision. And
Hmm. Well, that's great.
that often changes a hiring decision, let's say.
Yeah. I always remember when we were in South Africa, they would talk to us about now versus now. Right. So it's like something you do now is like sort of like in the next few weeks. Now means you have to actually do it now. Right.
This is a
So you
huge
gotta learn that.
This is huge in Latin America. It must be worse than in South Africa, because we have ahora, which is now, and ahorita, which is like little now. And yeah, punctuality just isn't really a big thing in general. So that's something we're really, really like, we're cutthroat about it, because like, particularly working with US clients where punctuality
Yes.
is a huge thing. It's not okay to show up 5 minutes late to a meeting. Um, we're very clear about that in our interview process and during the training, that if people aren't late, they just don't get put through to. If people are late, they don't get put through to the next step.
Yeah. The I noticed that too personally, but like whenever my friend I was saying I had some friends that grew up in Venezuela, and
Yeah.
like going to their house, it's like if you show up at like the 15-20 minute fashionabonably late time that Americans believe in, they're
Uh-huh.
still like showering,
Yeah.
getting ready, right? So it's like you gotta, I don't know, there's some time period that I don't understand that Latin culture works on, but you
Or
know.
if they're coming to you, they will tell you they're on the way when they're still showering. This one,
Exactly.
I can never get it. Like, why?
Yeah, I never quite figure it out, but anyway, it works. They're all good fun. So yeah, like culturally, I'd be curious, like, what's the perspective that the hires have of working for with Americans and American companies? Like, how do they see it?
So, counter to how it appears in the news, like what kind of country and people are in Venezuela, where the media makes it look very socialist, anti-American.
I
Um,
know they're capitalists.
no,
Yeah.
on the ground, they're like worshipping the US, and the culture is very similar to the US. 30 years ago, when Venezuela was one of the most developed, I think it was the most developed economy in Latin America, like the common thing was for people to go and study their masters in the US. And then
Mm,
we're like hiring the kids of these people. So like there's definitely like American culture in their families, and their parents send them to bilingual American English high schools. So they speak amazing English. They get that. They just quite get the culture, and all the shows they're watching on Netflix are like US. Um,
mm.
there's a big influence of US culture in Venezuela and Latin America in general. Um, so that's something we see a lot.
Yeah, and what do they, I guess there's the time difference of showing up, but are there other things like that they kind of struggle with because it's not how it works in their country, or a company that they would work for there?
Um, yeah, so there is one thing, um, and you see it contrasting a lot with like clients that we have in New York, for example. So New York, there's often no time for pleasantries. It's like straight
Right.
business, very direct communication style. Um, Latin people are definitely more, uh, like I could say, soft in terms of their emotions. And I love it. Like I've lived there for the last 15 years in Latin America, and I love how people behave and how they are emotionally, how friendly they are, how warm they are. But definitely sometimes that creates situations whereby a client in New York particularly might be communicating in a way which to them is normal, but to the virtual assistant it might clash a little bit. And even I see it with some parts of the US, because like British culture is like much more refrained, and there's a much bigger thing about politeness.
Yeah.
And yeah, in Latin America, people are much warmer, much more about their emotions. They'll definitely do pleasantries before they talk about business. So if a client comes into a call and doesn't ask how was their weekend, just gets straight down to the numbers, then to them that might look a little bit lacking of emotion or caring. And actually, one of our core values in the business is care. So we want to work with clients who care about their people, and we want to work with assistants and team members who care about their work, their colleagues, and their clients.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. So Dan, this has been awesome. So people want to reach out. It's Valatam. What's the best way to get to you?
Yeah, on our website, valatam.com, we have a contact form. We're also on social media with the @Valatam handle. But yeah, we've got a lot of content on our website and also blogs and things. So I'd probably say that's the best
Cool.
place.
Well, great. Awesome. Well, thanks for being on today, Dan.
Alan, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course.
You've been listening to Owner RX with Alan Pentz. Want to apply what you just learned? Try our AI business advisor at ownerrx.com. It has all the insights and lessons from this podcast, plus hundreds of playbooks, ready to solve your specific business challenges. Owner RX. Stop being the bottleneck. Start being the owner.